This is the 2022 version of Mount Akina for Assetto Corsa, and it may be the best version yet. It was created by Project Kaido, a modder whose main objective is total realism. His past efforts include the Gunsai Touge course, which looks exactly like the real thing, and when comparing his still incomplete rendition of Akina to the real world, as well as the 2017 and EK versions, it's evident that this is the most realistic one to date. Project Kaido has crammed this track with so much vegetation that it practically puts Microsoft Flight Simulator to shame, and it's almost unprecedented to see this many trees in Assetto Corsa without much of a performance hit. The trees and plants aren't those shabby 2D ones we're used to seeing in Assetto Corsa either. The trees are true to life Japanese pine and maple, placed as faithful to the real world as possible, with intense attention to detail to ensure you never see the same tree twice. Without realising it. It's this attention to detail that makes Project Kaido's mod such a treat to check out, and this level of quality carries on throughout. Although it would be inappropriate to compare the various bits and pieces of scenery on the Project Kaido version to its predecessors, as it's still unfinished. However, we can get a broad idea of how the finished product will look from the portions that do feature full scenery. It's obvious that Project Kaido is working from top to bottom, and at the start of the Touge, I'd say the scenery is close to completion, and my god, does it look good. It's pretty much identical to what we can see on Google Maps. I probably don't need to mention it again, but he's going for full immersion here. While the 2017 version of Akina does look complete and somewhat realistic, it's obviously looking extremely dated. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was ripped from a game that was at its peak way before 2017. And as for the EK 2021 version, this was ripped from the Initial D arcade game, so its scenery is going for a more cartoon caricature vibe. Now, before we get on to the most important part of the mod, being the road and how it feels to drive, I need to admit something. My name's That Sim Racing Bloke, and I'm an Akina hater. It's become so bad recently that I made a 9-minute video slandering it. I just couldn't help myself, it's becoming a real problem. Yes, I know, it's Touge heresy, but I stand by my opinions. Let me remind you what I think is so terrible about Akina. The gist of it is, Mount Akina isn't particularly difficult. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's boring. So with my, let's call it, lack of enthusiasm for Akina, why am I making this video? Does the 2022 version actually do things differently other than looking realistic? But before we find out if this version of Akina is actually fun to drive on, I need to let you know about something. Only around 20% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so if you could hit that big red button, you'll get to see more of my videos and it would mean a lot. Thank you. It's still obviously Akina, and most of the corners remain identifiable, but it has a totally different feel to the previous versions. I think Project Kaido excellently blends the beauty of EK Akina as well as the trickiness of Akina 2017. To begin with, the road feels considerably more claustrophobic. It's narrower and you're encapsulated by not only dense forest, but also guardrails and some rather steep embankments. This makes the drive feel slightly more exhilarating and improves the sensation of speed. More significantly, however, it's much closer to real life. It gives off the vibe that you're actually driving a road on a mountain, something that is remarkably difficult to mimic in a simulator, and only a few mods have pulled it off successfully. Speaking of sense of speed, the Project Kaido version of Akina has a greater sense of verticality. In the previous editions, it almost seemed flat, but on this one, there's all these micro elevation changes. While the actual elevation data is presumably the same, all the humps in the road do make the drive feel more engaging, as opposed to the almost entirely flat American highway style roads we see on EK Akina. Not only this, but they also sometimes cut off your line of sight down the road, like on this corner. Again, this helps the drive feel more dynamic and plays into the claustrophobia component I mentioned earlier. If you're a bit of a nerd like me, you'll love the fact that the road isn't consistent at all. It has minute bumps and uneven camber which can throw the car around a little bit when you're at the limit. Speaking of which, the entire stretch of road is lined by guttering, and you can actually use them to your advantage to slingshot yourself around the corner. And if you're in an all-wheel drive car like I am, you can pull out some rally-inspired moves even when there isn't a gutter, and hook a wheel into the dirt around a hairpin. As you get towards the end of the Touge, it's obvious that this is still an unfinished mod at the moment, but the groundwork is quite literally there. There's small roads spurring off the one you're driving, which just adds to the lifelikeness, and there are various buildings plopped around with driveways that you can actually get onto. I'm sure these will be a welcome feature for servers. And as you hurtle down the final straight, you can even get a glimpse of the city that Akina towers over. It's cool seeing skyscrapers peek over the treetops. If we take a look behind the scenes, we can see that the road actually extends past the point in which Akina usually ends, and it even goes into the city. Now, I don't want to speculate, but it looks like Project Kaido is even going to put some of Gunma onto the map. Let's keep our fingers crossed, but no guarantees. Overall, there's not much difference to the layout of Akina in this version, and I've already covered that in depth on the channel, so there's not much to add on that front, but I will say that it is definitely an improvement. I'm not sure if this version has more kinks in the road that make the long straights of Akina feel shorter or what, but I did enjoy driving this version considerably more, which is probably a good thing, as Project Kaido has been working on this mod for literal years now. When I first saw it, it was just a road with absolutely nothing else. Making the road as true to life as possible was obviously his priority, and I have to say it has paid off. Not only is this the most realistic version of Akina we've got, but it is also the most fun to drive. However, there is a catch. This mod is yet to be finished. So if you want access to the beta version, you're gonna have to join the Project Kaido Patreon. It's around $250 US and you get access to the mod. But if you want to check out one of the best Assetto Corsa Touges that is absolutely free, you need to click on this video right now, because you won't want to miss out on it.